Noble.
Cersei.
Violent.
The Hound.
Hangry.
Daenerys.
Speechless.
Arya.
Stark.
Order your man to step aside or there will be violence.
I choose violence. Should I fail to persuade the Blackfish to surrender, and if you attack the castle, honor compels me to fight you.
I love Cersei, and if I have to slaughter every Tully who ever lived to get back to her, that's what I'll do.
This week, all sorts of cool stuff happened.
Pretty cool.
And we talk about the coolest stuff first, right off the bat in the show. What did you like the most? Brian.
I thought the coolest part of this...
The coolest part.
Yeah, the coolest part.
That's the coolest. Not your favorite thing, not the part that was best done, but the part that fits just like the 90s veneer of cool.
Yeah, we do 3 segments on the show now. It's pros, cons, and cool. It's cool. The coolest part of the show for me was Edmure. Strangely, yeah, it's like a surprise, come from behind... You know, the clock's buzzing down. And I'm like, oh, he did it. He just didn't score any points all season, and he gets 3 at the end, so he's the star for some reason.
Right, but he's clearly off the bench, right?
Yeah. You didn't expect it, but there he is. No, I really did enjoy it. I think maybe it was because it was surprising that we didn't know a whole lot about Edmure coming in. We've seen him before. No. My first impression, or really only impression of the guy, was sort of a smug jerk.
Yeah, or like he's pretty incompetent at stuff, right? He can't light the canoe on fire bearing his dead father, I believe.
Right.
And he does a really poor military tactic that Rob gets pissed at him for.
Yeah.
And he's generally kind of like likable.
Sure.
Right? He's not like
seems like a nice guy,
he's
but
not like a jester, but he's
overly
kind of
confident compared to his ability.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then we hadn't seen him for so long with the surprise that he comes out as the prisoner. But I really love that scene with him and Jamie, like well acted. So for him, from the actor, like well done. But he lost all that veneer, maybe all that stuff I thought you knew about him being like incompetent and smug and sort of a jerk. Like he was a real guy, and I felt like I learned a lot about him.
2 years in a cell will do that to you, right?
Yeah,
that kind of thing. That scene to me was very reminiscent of early Game of Thrones episodes where they had that. I mean, there was a couple different ones with the same thing with Jaime talking to Catelyn and other various kind of prisoner speaking to non-prisoners, right? Varys talking to Eddard in season 1, and this one it very much seemed like that because they really stretched it out, and that type of scene I think is really important. Whenever they have like little stories. Like that, it reminds me of the scene in episode 408 where Tyrion's talking about smashing the beetle, right, with Jaime, where it's like he's sentenced to die, and the story just comes up out of him as like this is really like important. Now Jaime's is obviously focused on Edmure, right? But that just the premise of that scene, right? The power dynamics.
Anyway, that was my pro. Joel,
I've got pros.
Tell me one.
I've got all sorts of pros. The best part of the episode was when the mountain ripped that guy's face off because.
Awesome.
It harkened back to that other best part of the season, which was when he ripped that other guy's face.
That was really good
to the
too.
Wall.
At the end of this, we should do like a top 5 best mountain face ripping.
Rippings. Yeah.
Even if there's only 5, that's fine. We'll still do
the irony is
on.
there'll probably be about 8, and we'll have to choose. The list will have some merit because we'll be like, I don't know about that one. Look at the splatter range. Yeah. So.
I said when the season started, like the only thing I wanted was for the mountain to walk around and crush skulls. And there's not enough, but when it does happen, I'm really satisfied by it.
And I mean, there's only I agree entirely. So I really like the scenes in King's Landing where with Cersei and the mountain, and with Qyburn as well, her little sneaky guy, and especially for 2 reasons. One, the parts with the Faith Militant finally not bossing people around was so nice. Like Cersei, that line, right, where she's like, I choose violence.
Oh, so good.
And she's just like, she is not...
Well, it was more like...
putting up with it.
I choose violence.
Yeah. It's like never, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that they're like, it is going to get violent in here. You be careful, young miss.
That's what a guy says when he's never been violent.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about to be violenced.
We've got clubs and such. They're sharp and rusty.
We have boards with nails in them.
Yeah, exactly.
Build bigger boards with bigger nails in them.
So I like that scene was good. It's nice to see the Faith Militant get get just like turned around a little in their heels.
Yeah.
It's like she may be entirely outnumbered, but she has a core of strength. She has these 2 other people.
Yeah.
She can't trust anyone else. The Tyrells might still be helpful, but
the
she
Mountain
basically
has great
just
core
has
strength, yeah.
her like physical strength and her brain strength in 2 different people, and she's stranded. So I like that part.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect of it I liked was the whole scene with the proclamation of Tommen, where he bans trials by combat just to like, put a knife in the wound of sending Jaime away.
But he doesn't really know. Like, he was clearly uncomfortable throughout that scene.
Oh yeah, you watch it.
He knows that he's
doing
making it
something
difficult
wrong,
for
making
his mother.
something tough. Yeah, and he is rubbing. You watch his fingers. He's nervously fidgeting with the thing the whole time, and then he like won't catch her gaze.
Right. He sort of looks her way ish, but not at her, and then turns back.
At the end, she walks alongside him to like make
Try
that
and get-
connection. To maybe
get
he'll
his
turn.
attention.
Maybe he'll turn to talk to her. Maybe he'll come find her, and he like brushes it off, and then he looks like proud, right? Like his face changes from worried to like, had to do what I had to do.
That's Tommen's biggest problem as a king, is that he's constantly looks like he's like holding it together.
Yeah.
Every time, like, he looks like he's like, I am the king, but it's so fake. I just don't never believe that he has that confidence.
Yeah. Well, and why would you? It's not
you wouldn't.
It's not like the kings have lasted longer than like a few months in the past couple. Right? Like everyone's dying
He's
over
checking
and
his
over.
watch.
Exactly.
I get about
There's a whole
week and a half.
There's a whole hag's curse saying that he's going to die before his mom,
Oh, yeah.
and she's sentenced to die in like a day. So I'd be watching my back too. So Brian, those are the things we loved and found cool.
Super cool.
What didn't you like? What did you find grody?
Unrad.
Grody was good.
I want to make a complaint that is it's not unique to this episode, but it happened. So it's a little minor irritation that happens in a variety of episodes, and it's when the show wants to give you a detail, wants to provide you with some sort of information. It's really not a big piece of information. It might be something like Varys is going to go on a secret mission.
Right.
Okay, that's a thing we need to know. But it's TV. They can't just, like, DB Weiss can't walk out and be like, Varys is going on a mission, and then cut to the next.
Right, yeah.
They have to write a scene around it. So they'll write these, like, 4-minute scenes. That scene of Tyrion and him walking through the city. Right. And I get that we're getting other information about the city getting better.
Right.
But it's just it's very little information in a too large of a scene.
Okay.
And that happened. That was the first scene. And then the Tyrion joke scene where they're all trying to figure out how to tell jokes. Again, like, cute. The dialogue is cute, but it's a long scene where the only thing that we really need is the bit at the very end, which is entirely different from everything that's happened before.
Right.
Same with the Varys thing. Like, you're going to secret mission, entirely different from the rest of the bit
from
that was
talking
coming.
about the city.
That's right.
Whereas we're under siege is entirely different from tell me a joke.
Right.
Right.
And I know that, and you you had mentioned that a couple episodes ago. I said, I really love that earlier Tyrion scene of them sitting around drinking.
Yeah.
I felt like that was a bit unique.
And it seemed like it again. Right? Like
it seemed like it again, but again, it's not unique to this episode. It happens a lot when they want to provide a detail about something, and you watch this scene, and it's just happening as people sitting around, and then 5 minutes later, they're like, "This guy just died." I'm like, "Oh, that's what
that was the point of why we were there, right? Yeah.
But the rest of it had nothing to do with it. So it's not a big deal. Didn't ruin the episode for me. In fact, I generally really liked it. But if they could do less of that, that would be nice.
Yeah.
I suppose.
See, my thing with that is it's hard because if you take out everything like that, then it becomes like a children's story where it's like, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and there's no character or flavor.
It's a fine line.
I think the purpose, especially of that joke drinking scene, I think the purpose is, oh man, we're really not accelerating Grey Worm or Missandei at all. Like, they are doing absolutely nothing this season. What can we do? Let's have them learn a little laughter from Tyrion. Like, Tyrion's sitting there mostly. Like, we've had a couple episodes without him even in it. Right? This is the guy who won an Emmy, and he hasn't been featured in like multiple episodes this season because he's over there now, right? He's in Essos, and less stuff happens there, right? So that aspect of it, I kind of get, right? Where it's like it very much seems like we have to keep coming back to these people. They are important, but they literally are doing nothing. Well, Dany, meanwhile, like how much has Daenerys actually done in that time compared to them? Right?
I feel like
she flew off on a dragon, like basically a season ago, and in that time she like landed in the wastes, was abandoned, dropped a thing, was found by a Khalasar, was like taken over by them, took them over, burned everything down, right? Like, took over a whole Khalasar again. The dragon grew to be the size of 2 dragons, right? She got on it again. Now she's got this whole cowl. She comes back to the city. And meanwhile, Tyrion was like, tell me a joke. And it's like, it's like Grey Worm learned how to tell a joke. And like,
the show does it all the time. I don't have a specific example, but Dany scenes in the past I feel have been really bad for this, where it's a really long scene, and then you get to the end of it, and some big thing happens at the end.
Yeah, that's a book.
It's like, we're just trying to, like, we have these great actors, and it's awesome when they do stuff. So we're writing lines for them. It's like, there just sometimes isn't quite enough plot for all the lines.
And it certainly seemed like those lines were all written just for Peter Dinklage to be really witty.
To be really funny.
Right? To be really funny.
Yeah.
Witty.
And he is. And it was funny.
The scene I was upset with was Arya's final scene when she's being chased by the waif. A couple parts of it. The whole premise of, this whole thing where anybody gets stabbed in any capacity, and if they're not a main character, they just insta-die.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh, Arya was stabbed multiple times in the
no
chest.
way.
There's like, she should clearly be vaguely dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, but she like stumbled across town bleeding, and...
The waist, she's got a 6-inch blade.
Yeah.
She stabbed her like 6 times in the abdomen.
But like,
dead.
We didn't know, because it was mysterious at the end of the last one, how she survived or what exactly she did, right?
Right.
And in this case too, it's kind of like, oh, the waif just stopped tracking her. We just saw the waif.
We never really
we
found
saw
out.
the waif like Terminator style track her down,
Which was cool.
For like 10 minutes. She's like running along walls, right?
Yeah.
She's just like leaping over like wagons,
swords,
and carts.
knives,
right? Exactly. Yeah.
stabbing weapons.
She's like, I'm calm for you.
Yeah.
Right. So she would stop at nothing to follow Arya in this case, even though she can clearly track her down within like half a day.
Yeah.
But last time she's like, she drove in the water.
What do
My
I do?
threads. I don't want to get wet. I'll just leave that bloody like path that she is leading through the city.
Yeah.
I'm going to go have a biscuit. Like, so the discrepancy there bothered me. The chase was fine. I mean, Arya's leaving blood everywhere. It may have been on purpose, because it's almost like this idea of I need to get her so that I have needle.
But you had an idea last week.
She clearly had it hidden in this certain spot, and she knew where it was.
Yeah.
She also clearly had to like jump from mighty heights to get there, so it couldn't have been that well planned. And the problem with it overall for me was I feel like they really lost an opportunity to have Arya being hunted through the city by a faceless person.
Yeah, this was your idea last week.
Yeah, but that was like, I thought that would still happen. I thought that was going to happen in this episode. And the chase scene in this episode is about 7 minutes.
It's pretty long.
They could have filled out that last episode by having this amazing ending with that plus the faces. Instead, you have this one extra moment with the woman, which would mean something if she didn't immediately die.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, all we learned was Arya wants to go the other direction instead of going home. We could have figured that out as soon as she actually goes there.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I basically agree with all of that. My retroactive complaint is that this is basically what I wanted to have happen last week. My complaint about last week was that it happened so quickly. The wave comes her, she stabs her, pushes her in the river, and I felt like we've been leading up the whole season for these two characters to face off, and like, why didn't we get that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, why didn't we just do this last week?
When
it actually happened? Like, what did we learn about Arya in the last 2 days, of her life that we didn't know before?
And that's why, like, the nursing back to health was not necessary. I imagine part of it was that she had to be hurt, but like, I mean, you had to
hurt her throughout the scene.
You had the easy in of she was just hurt. You don't have to patch her up and then have her hurt again.
Yeah,
right? Like,
just hurt her.
So
Joel, that's this week's episode.
Yes.
What do you think's going on in future week episodes?
Well, so far I've been 100% correct. So I can tell you exactly what's happening in future episodes.
Spoil it for me.
I will spoil it. Epic sea battle. That's what's going to happen. This is a better way of doing predictions. Instead of me saying maybe it'll be this, I prefer
just declare
really
it to be
bold
true.
Declarations that will totally come back to bite me.
Sea battle.
Sea battle, it's going to happen. You got these weird ships from all the other slaver cities. They've got catapults on them, or marginals or whatever.
Yeah.
The masters are coming,
yeah.
right? They've got this huge fleet that is like proportionally way too large for logic. So who else has like a gigantic fleet of way too many ships? The Greyjoys.
And they have 2 fleets, potentially, of huge, gigantic ships. Yara has her own fleet, and then 3 to 4 years behind her,
right?
Once his boats are done, is, what's his name? Euron's coming behind him.
But
who knows?
They're all going to Marine.
Yeah.
And one thing we haven't seen a boat-to-boat battle.
That's
right,
true.
in the show. And
we saw a boat versus city battle.
I saw boat versus explosion battle, which didn't fare well for the boats.
Yeah.
But in this case, I imagine that is what's going to happen. That's all the time we had this week for Game of Thrones Fan vs. Fan, episode 608. Yeah! I'm Joel Minty.
I'm Brian Crosby.
If you loved what you saw and you want to see a lot more of it, what you can do is you can subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're currently watching by clicking this button.
And if you really loved what you saw, you can also follow us on Twitter at Dorkshelf, which you can do something about in this general area.
Mm-hmm. And once you do that, your life will be really fulfilled. Bye-bye. Next week. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Boats.
Cool.
Kicked him out.